You little stupid ass bitch, I ain't fucking with you. You little dumb ass bitch, I ain't fucking with you.
As with every year, for each good movie there are a couple of bad ones. Luckily, we have reviews and other things to filter out movies we may not enjoy. But even then, sometimes we end up seeing a bad movie anyway. Either because we were willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, expected it to be fun, it was morbid curiosity, or just bad luck. Of the movies I've seen in 2017, these are the top 7 I enjoyed the least. Keep in mind, this list is entirely opinion-based. If you like the movies I'm about to mention, that's fine by me. Like last year, there are a couple of controversial picks, so I'd like you to keep an open mind. Let's not waste any more time and start the list. Number 7. Fist Fight. Another Ice Cube comedy made my least favorite movies of the year list. Come on, Ice Cube, I know you can do good movies. So why does he keep appearing in forgettable ones? What bothered me the most about Fist Fight is that it was a rather mean-spirited movie. Ice Cube plays a very unlikable teacher who is terrible at his job. A colleague points out his aggression only to have the entire world turn against him. And I don't mean that sarcastically. The students, his family, the teachers, and even the police make fun of him for being threatened. This is one of those cases where I feel they made the main character too innocent and gave him too much misery, which made it lose its funniness and become more uncomfortable as a result. Fist Fight is also a movie that thinks cursing, drugs, and taboo subjects are funny in and of itself without thinking of a clever way to use these subjects. However, it's a short movie you can easily forget, so it's not higher on the list. Number 6. Ron Goossens, low-budget stuntman. If you're not from Holland, Belgium, or Germany, you probably have never heard of this movie. Hell, even if you are from one of these countries, chances are big you've missed this one. Ron Goossens is a dirty comedy about a depressed alcoholic who performs dangerous stunts for movies while receiving little to no money. Similar to Fist Fight, this is a comedy where the world is so unlikable towards the main character that it stopped being funny and became uncomfortable. But unlike Fist Fight, the main character himself is very unlikable too. His wife cheats on him, followed by saying she'll leave him unless he'll prove himself to her by going to bed with a famous model in Holland. If that scenario isn't unlikable downright, from that point on he stalks the model, even going as far as breaking in and entering her house, lying next to her in bed, or letting his friends drug her boyfriend. I didn't laugh at what he did to her. I felt sorry for her and wanted him to leave her alone. However, there were a couple of jokes that were genuinely funny. Especially the short music montages you often saw, or when he visits his father in hell, only to find out hell is actually a cozy bar underneath the grave. That was a pretty clever joke. Aside from that, Ron Goossens is a forgettable, mean-spirited comedy that I didn't enjoy. Number 5. The Mummy. This looked like it was going to be a fun, cheesy action movie. Tom Cruise can do action comedy very well. Sofia Boutella is a very talented actress that has proven herself to be great at playing a villain, and even Russell Crowe seemed to play an important part. But the movie was nothing like I expected it to be. Instead of self-aware comedy, the movie tried to be dark, serious, and suspenseful for most of the time. The suspense scenes consist of lame jump scares and loud music. The role of Russell Crowe was nothing but a big setup for other movies that felt out of place in the context of this movie, and Sofia tried to make the character cool, but the script gave her nothing to work with, which made the character forgettable. I didn't care about the romance of Cruise, most of the jokes didn't work, and suspense was non-existent. Shame, there was potential for a fun cheese flick, but the script and directing made it into a boring sit, nothing more. Number 4. 47 Meters Down. To me, 47 Meters Down was for 2017 what The Shallows was for 2016. A shark story that would have worked in a short movie, but is stretched out to a 90-minute picture. You know the girls are not getting out of the cage the first chance they get, and you know a shark is not going to get them in the first couple of minutes. It became very predictable, which made the movie miserably fail at creating suspense. In comparison to The Shallows, I like this one a teensy bit more, because this time there were two characters that also had other problems to focus on, like the oxygen. It felt like this time there was a bit more meat to the story, but not much. A lame suspense movie I could have done without. It's time for the controversial picks of last year. Not a Star Wars movie this time, but it's also a science fiction that received praise. Again, if you like this movie, that's fine by me. Number 3. Life. I don't want to purposefully add praised movies on my list just to displease viewers, but I don't want to lie about my opinion either. Life is a movie that felt too similar to other movies I've seen, Alien in particular, while not giving an interesting take on it. The characters are forgettable, the story is a basic monster kills people in spaceship story, the characters make numerous dumb decisions to let the monster get to them even when the monster is locked away, and the monster itself is all done in CGI, including the blood, which gives him a very fake feeling. It felt like it was trying to imitate Alien and Gravity too much, without expanding on those ideas. As a result, Life was a bland borefest of a movie that on occasion could get unintentionally funny. Especially the music that got overly bombastic during intense moments, or overly sentimental during dramatic moments didn't work in the movie's favor. What I can say is that the acting was decent and the cinematography had some nice parts. Rest of the movie, not my cup of tea. Number 2. King Arthur, The Legend of the Sword. This movie has the worst editing I have seen in a long time. It felt like this was supposed to be a 4-hour miniseries, but they decided to cram it into a 2-hour movie instead. As a result, most of the movie consists of a scene in which they mixed 3 different events together. At first, this works alright. A character talks about something he will do in the future, then you see him doing it at the same time. But then it's used over and over, to the point of me not being able to enjoy either of the events in a scene, because it constantly keeps cutting to other events. If a joke is told, during the middle of the joke it can cut to another event, thus ruining the timing and punchline of the joke. If a character is fighting, it jumps back and forth to talking scenes rather than focusing on the fighting, so you're not able to see anything of the actual fighting. Next to the editing, it felt like the story had way too much to tell. Characters can appear and disappear without leaving an impact. The motivations are explained but never explored, like how the villain loves power. And that's pretty much it. Add an overly serious tone and what you get is a rushed mess of a movie that failed on almost every front. There was a moment in which Arthur had his sword and I was thinking, yes, now we get some action. Then mist shows up and you can't see anything of the fighting. It felt like every time the movie was about to do something decent, it kicked you in the balls instead. The only things that I liked was one decent sword fight that basically was a lamer version of the church fight from Kingsman, and a couple of shots that looked pretty. Aside from that, I hated this movie that didn't even work as a no-brain popcorn flick. Before I get to number 1, some dishonorable mentions. Mother. Mother was an unpleasantly cruel movie that just bored me to no end. The entire movie is trying to figure out the metaphors, which I wasn't able to do since I have no religious background, without any solid arguments to back up these metaphors. People are ruining the earth. That's all this movie really has to say. But to the movie's credit, it's very original. It tried something new and fresh, different from anything I've seen last year, and the acting was outstandingly fantastic. Not my thing, but I can see where the appeal comes from, so I left it off the list. The Boss Baby. This got nominated for an Oscar. Really? Was 2017 really that forgettable of a year for animated movies? Or did the people who judged the Oscars just not bother to watch any of the good ones? But I digress. I actually think it's very hard to describe what this movie is about. I honestly couldn't tell you whether the events of this movie were the fantasy of these kids, or what you saw was actually happening. It's a mess in that regard. But the movie's very colorful, energizing, and has some funny moments. It's about the bond between brothers, and as a movie aimed at children, this seems like a harmless direction. And now, my number 1, my least favorite movie I've seen in 2017 is... the Emoji Movie. It's a big cliche to add on a worst movie of 2017 list, but for a good reason. I was willing to give this movie the benefit of the doubt, since the previous Sony animation movies pleasantly surprised me. But the Emoji Movie was everything I hoped it wasn't going to be. A pile of overused cliches that don't have an interesting spin on them. Scenes that feel more like an expensive sales pitch rather than doing anything clever with the apps. And word puns that fall painfully flat. I don't mind the idea of a movie about emoticons, honestly. And I don't mind the idea about traveling through cell phone apps. As long as you manage to do something fun with it, like the Lego Movie managed to do with toys. In the Emoji Movie, however, each app doesn't have anything to say, other than explaining how it works and that it's really awesome. This makes the movie feel like one big commercial that encourages children to buy phones and play apps. Like it's the most important thing in the world. Hell, even the movie itself states this.
The smartphone. Each system and program and app is its own little planet of perfect technology. All providing services so necessary, so crucial, so unbelievably profound.
Next to these shameful sales pitches, the movie has painful plot holes. They need to get the Dropbox, which they can just walk to instantly, but for some reason they must go through Just Dance and Candy Crush. Why? You could just walk around them, like you do later in the movie. Or the boy is erasing his phone, but at the last percent he pulls out his charger, magically recovering all his data. For a movie that is all about cell phone use, not knowing how erasing data works seems like kind of a big thing to mess up. While I don't think it's one of the worst animated movies I've seen, because of its colorful visuals and some grin moments, it's easily one of the laziest and most boring I've seen in a long time. Therefore, it's my #1 least favorite movie I've seen in 2017. So, thank you for watching my video. What movies did you dislike the most? Let me know in the comments.
Bitch, I ain't fucking with you. You little stupid ass bitch, I ain't fucking with you. You little dumb